On the morning of June 3, 1998, a sense of routine enveloped the passengers aboard Intercity Express, I-884, a high-speed train departing from Munich at 7:30 a.m. The train, part of Germany's flagship IC1 series, was known for its comfort, speed, and technological superiority. It was a testament to German engineering, built for long-distance travel with state-of-the-art features designed to ensure safety, speed, and passenger satisfaction. It was to be another regular journey, one of many for the hundreds of passengers, which included businesspeople, tourists, and commuters heading to Hamburg, a city on the other side of the country. However, little did the passengers know that the train they were on was carrying them toward a disaster that would be forever etched into the annals of railway history. The train had 1,200 passengers aboard, comfortably seated in 13 carriages. It was an ordinary morning with passengers reading, chatting, or relaxing in their seats, unaware that this routine trip was about to become a nightmare. The first signs of trouble. Around 8:10 a.m. as the train approached the small village of Eschede in Lower Saxony, everything changed. The train, traveling at about 200 kilometers per hour, 124 miles per hour, was hurtling through the German countryside, when a manufacturing defect in one of the train's wheel rims started a chain reaction that would end in disaster. The fault was in the second carriage, where a wheel rim began to crack. This wheel, part of the train's axle, was crucial to maintaining the stability of the train, especially at such high speeds. The crack had been forming over time, but it went undetected during standard inspections. The material defect, a tiny crack in the wheel rim, worsened under the stress of high-speed travel. The crack led to the complete failure of the wheel. As it began to disintegrate, the vibrations throughout the train became increasingly pronounced, but no alarms sounded to alert the train crew to the impending danger. The automatic safety systems, which were designed to detect such mechanical failures, failed to trigger an alarm in this instance. As the wheel continued to deteriorate, it caused severe damage to the axle and, ultimately, the train's suspension system. At this point, the train was unable to continue running smoothly. The derailment begins. At 8:12 a.m., the disastrous failure became fully apparent. The wheel had disintegrated and the second carriage was now off the tracks. The violent jolt from the derailment caused the first carriage to break free from its normal position and slam into the metal pylons of an overpass. This moment of impact triggered an uncontrollable series of events. The train's momentum at 200 kilometers per hour, combined with the derailment's initial shock, caused the rest of the carriages to follow in quick succession. The train became a chaotic and uncontrolled mass of metal, its sleek, advanced design no match for the sudden breakdown in its key components. The first 4 carriages were the worst affected, their bodies torn open with the screech of metal and crash of concrete deafening the passengers. As the train continued to plow off the rails, the overpass, which had spanned across the tracks, became part of the catastrophe. The overpass collapsed onto the wreckage below, trapping hundreds of people in a deadly tangle of twisted metal and concrete. It was not just the derailment that caused the catastrophe. The collapse of the overpass compounded the disaster, burying the train beneath tons of debris. The tragedy unfolds, lives lost in an instant. The sheer violence of the crash caused 101 fatalities, including 96 passengers and 5 crew members. More than 80 passengers were critically injured. Many of the fatalities were caused by the direct impact of the overpass, which fell onto the train, and the severe crushing injuries that followed. Survivors of the crash would later recount the terrifying moment the impact occurred. One survivor, Jürgen Petermann, later described the moment of the derailment as feeling like the entire world was collapsing around him. "I felt a sudden horrible jolt and everything turned dark. There was an unbearable noise, as though the earth itself had opened up. I thought I was going to die." Passenger accounts from those in the middle and rear carriages described a chaotic scene as the train lurched violently from side to side. Some were thrown from their seats. The train's lights went out, plunging everyone into darkness as the train slid uncontrollably. The train didn't stop. It just kept going, and it was like I was in a bad dream, said Martin Eberhard, another survivor who had been in the 6th carriage. Emergency response. A race against time. The immediate aftermath was nothing short of chaotic. Rescue teams from nearby towns were dispatched, but the collapse of the overpass had blocked most access routes. The first responders had to use cutting tools to reach the survivors. The heat from the wreckage made it difficult to reach some of the trapped passengers, and the severity of the crash made extraction operations a slow, painful process. Survivors were heard crying out for help as fire and rescue teams worked tirelessly to free them from the wreckage. Many were trapped for hours, with some only being rescued after several hours of painstaking effort. The scene was made even more tragic by the sheer scale of destruction. It was as if the very train had been torn apart, leaving survivors to fend for their lives in a massive field of twisted steel and broken bodies. In the first hours, emergency personnel worked to cut through the wreckage, searching for the wounded and recovering the bodies of the dead. Helicopters arrived at the scene to transport the most severely injured to nearby hospitals, and ambulances were lined up, ready to take survivors away from the scene. But the true magnitude of the disaster wouldn't be fully realized until later. The investigation. What went wrong? Following the immediate aftermath of the disaster, investigators from the German Railway Accident Investigation Commission, DSB, began their inquiry into the cause of the crash. Their findings were chilling. The primary cause of the disaster was the failure of the train wheel, which had been affected by a manufacturing defect in the steel used to make the wheel's rim. The crack had grown progressively worse, but it had not been detected during routine inspections. The investigation revealed that the ICE train's safety monitoring systems were supposed to detect such failures, but in this case they did not. The wheel failure was undetected, allowing the train to continue traveling at high speed until the catastrophic failure occurred. Moreover, the inspection protocols in place at the time were not rigorous enough to detect such defects in the steel. The investigation also pointed to the fact that there were gaps in safety technology, especially in terms of early detection systems for mechanical breakdowns. As investigators probed deeper into the incident, they also discovered that the design of the overpass was a contributing factor. The overpass, which collapsed onto the wreckage, was not designed to withstand such an impact. In fact, the structural integrity of the bridge was weak, and its failure turned what might have been a terrible accident into a devastating catastrophe. The legal and social aftermath. In the wake of the disaster, the legal ramifications were immediate and far-reaching. Families of the victims filed lawsuits against Deutsche Bahn and the train manufacturer Siemens, seeking compensation for the deaths of their loved ones. The case quickly became one of the most high-profile legal battles in German history, and it attracted widespread media attention both in Germany and abroad. The survivors were left grappling with the trauma of their experiences. Many were physically injured, while others were left mentally scarred by the events. Some survivors, like Wolfgang Schroeder, who was left severely injured, have spent years trying to recover both physically and emotionally from the impact of the crash. "There was no time to think," he recalled. "You just tried to survive. But the mental scars will always be there." The tragedy led to massive changes in the way rail safety was handled worldwide. Deutsche Bahn and other rail companies overhauled their safety protocols, and new inspection methods were introduced to ensure that no train would ever be allowed to operate with such defective parts. The wheel inspection system was also upgraded to detect even the smallest crack before it could cause catastrophic failure. On an international scale, European Union rail regulations were updated to reflect the lessons learned from the Eschede disaster. Additionally, the disaster sparked a broader conversation about rail safety and transportation infrastructure. The Eschede disaster was a stark reminder of how technological failures could lead to human tragedy, and the importance of continuous monitoring.